Every once in a while, my hair does something that makes sense. It just keeps me guessing so that I know I'm not the one in charge. What's up, guys? Welcome back. So, I have a new foundation to wear test for you guys. It's new to me. The Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Acid Tinted Moisturizer from Colourpop, and I also have the matching Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Creamy Concealer. I was just gonna do a regular old wear test on these guys, and then I anticipated what I think your biggest question is going to be, and that is, how does this stack up against the Glossier Skin Tint and the Glossier Stretch Concealer? Two very long time loves of mine, as you guys may or may not know, and they did reformulate this guy. They expanded the shade range maybe like a year ago, and they are worth comparing. And we're not gonna be comparing them today based on which one is good and which one is bad. It's more so that you guys can see what makes each one different, because they are actually different in some important ways, and help you guys decide between them, because that's kind of my mission right now, is helping you guys draw the distinctions between all the different skin tints that are out there. Like, that is something I know you guys are interested in, I'm interested in too, and the challenge is always trying to get that across on camera, because they do tend to kind of all look the same under these lights, and that's why I do close-ups and things like that. But I thought that the best way would be to apply them on either side of my face and do a full wear test, so that you guys can see the nuanced differences, the glaring differences, and genuinely just make a decision for yourself. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump in. Okie dokie. So we're gonna start with the Pretty Fresh. I have it in the shade Fair 2W, and it's a pretty big shade range. I got it in, I think, the lightest shade that is also warm undertone. And what I have found, because this is not a first impression on any of these products, is just that the moisture in both of these products means that a sponge is probably going to soak up a lot of it and maybe apply it differently than it would if you just put it on with your fingers. And I think that kind of the point of a skin tint a lot of times is that you can put it on with your fingers, you know, ease of use kind of thing. I put it on my left hand, inexplicably. That seems like a strange decision, so I'm gonna do that. Put it on my right hand here. And I did put it on with a sponge last time. I liked it okay. I'm definitely gonna do the concealer with a sponge, just because I think that the concealers are kind of what set the situation apart. And that doesn't mean you have to buy the set. You could mix and match, but I definitely think that like the coverage level is pretty similar here. You don't get a lot of like coverage. It doesn't build super well. We're gonna talk about obviously like ingredients and stuff like that that's going to hopefully shed some light on the differences in the way that these wear, and maybe the differences in the way that they like dry down or don't dry down. But for now, I will say that this does have a pretty nice dry down, but the coverage is in your control with the concealer. Let's go with the skin tint. I have it in the shade G11, and they reformulated this to have a little bit longer wear time, obviously to have a larger shade range, and also to have just a little bit more coverage. But I will say, like, as important as it is to have a good shade range, I could wear probably like the top 3 shades in this at any given time, because it just is so sheer. Everybody always asks, they're like, is this more coverage than the Glossier Skin Tint? And my answer is always, everything is more coverage than the Glossier Skin Tint. It is the lowest coverage of any skin tint, tinted moisturizer, what have you. Like, it belongs in its own category for that reason. But you can see that on both sides you get like a nice finish respectively, but they are very different. Like, this is gonna be just a little bit more satin, a little bit more coverage, and this is just a lot more dewy. So like I've mentioned in a previous video, fairly recently, I am going to actually go in with a little bit of under eye brightening corrector from Becca to kick this off, just because it makes it so I don't have to wear quite as much makeup, because it does a really good job of camouflaging all of the darkness. Because I feel like no matter how much concealer I put on, it's still not going to like believably cover gray tones in my skin. And I have a lot of gray tones in my skin, especially as I haven't been able to get peels lately or use any kind of retinols or anything like that. And so I've gotten a lot more pigmentation just as a result. But I think that this is just a real lifesaver, and it warrants mentioning. I kind of mention this every time, but the first ingredient in this Becca color corrector is castor seed oil, and so it does end up having a really nice kind of nourishing quality to it for those of us who have dry under eyes, and maybe like on spots that are healing, it's also really good for kind of making sure that they don't flake off as badly. I'm dying of allergies. Oh my God. Okay, let's go in with some of the stretch concealer. This is again in G11, and they do a good job of making sure that like the skin tint in G11 is deeper than the stretch concealer in G11 by just, you know, a shade and a half. And I think there might even be one shade that's lighter than this. I haven't like looked into this in a long time. In fact, I just ordered my actual shade since they expanded the shade range in Wowder because I had the wrong shade of Wowder. I had the wrong shade of Wowder. Say that 5 times fast. For a really long time because the initial release was only a few shades and the lightest shade was still too deep for me. Now I'm going to have my proper shade, and probably you'll be seeing a little bit more of that on my channel because it just is a lovely formula, but I could only wear it like when I was kind of tan. Okay, so you can see that the stretch concealer is very much just like a camouflaging concealer. It's very creamy. It does not tolerate powder very well. We are not going to be doing a powder look today just because Wowder, yes, it is a Glossier product and it is unique in that sense. It does a pretty good job on top of things like this, but other powders don't really. And I don't really think that that's like what anybody watching this video to see how a really low maintenance skin tint would perform. Like, I don't think that you're looking for like a full face of powder. This is where things get interesting. So this is the Pretty Fresh Hyaluronic Creamy Concealer. I have it in Fair 05W. And the first time that I tried this, I put way too much on. This has the power to be a completely like full coverage brightening concealer if you want it to be. And it's gonna make both sides of my face look pretty different from each other. Also, it is very pale. Like this is, I bought it in an extremely pale color. I did buy it online just because yes, they carry this at Ulta, but it is always open. I just don't love that. Like, I don't know about every Ulta, but my Ulta has always, everything's been opened already. And it's just like nothing's sanitary, nothing's new. And so I don't like want to go in there and buy that, you know? I just ordered it online. I kind of took my best guess at the shades, but like look at the difference on those concealers. They are crazy different. And this does have more of its own dry down. I talk about that all the time. So when something has dimethicone in it, tends to have its own dry down a little bit more. You know, you don't have to powder it, and it has kind of its own staying power on the skin because it's able to kind of flex a little bit more. It tends to like recover a little bit more easily is my experience, but my goodness, look at that. That is more of like a makeup look, and this is just the trademark Glossier glow. You know, you just get this like your skin but better situation, whereas this is definitely makeup, you know, and not like makeup, like you're still like low to medium coverage, but this is low to low coverage, you know? I am going to use this as an opportunity though to wear some Glossier products that I haven't worn in a while that I'm really still like obsessed with. So I'm gonna go with some cloud paint. We have Beam here. I do tend to use a sponge for this. You don't have to. It definitely can be just a really pretty like everything with your fingers kind of product. But you can see that like cloud paint shows up in more of like a wash sort of way on top of the skin tint, whereas the Colourpop kind of makes it look a little bit more opaque and it tries to kind of absorb the color a little bit more. Still though, so beautiful. And even though the lights are giving me a lot of like, I don't know, just obscuring of them, you still can see my freckles through the makeup on both sides. This is actually Haze, and it is one of those just unbelievable, beautiful berry tones. I always say this, but like we tend to think that pale skin tones aren't gonna be able to rock like a berry color or a brick red or something like that, and it's just not the case. We actually can totally rock it because it, I don't know, it just kind of makes you have a more natural looking flush. You know, Nordic child running through the fjords kind of situation. I think that that's just kind of like a really pretty berry, like tropical vibe. Okay, staying in the Glossier vibe, I'm just going to go on my eyelids with a little bit of the Moon Lid Star. We're not gonna go for like a big eye look today. I just want a little bit of shine. I just ordered 3 backups of my boy brow. I'm so tired of getting caught without. This week has worn me out, y'all. We are almost to the end of Mercury retrograde, and I know that, you know, Mercury retrograde isn't to blame for everything in our lives, but I definitely feel kind of run down, and this has just been a tiring week for me, and I'm just ready for some rest. I've been working my butt off. I'm loving the way both of those are looking. I'm actually going to take like a little baby brush. Even though we don't really have an eye look going on, I'm gonna give myself a little bit of eyeliner here with the Echo Sky Wash. It's just such a pretty way to add kind of like a smudgy eyeliner. I always forget to actually use Lash Slick in Glossier videos, so we're actually going to use the Lash Slick mascara today. It's a brand new tube. It's a great mascara. It's very, very lightweight. Builds really nicely. If you have eyelashes that tend to get weighed down really easily, if you curl them and things like that, and they tend to want to just straighten back out because of heavy mascara, Lash Slick could be a really good option for you. I'm gonna use the Glossier Generation G in Jam. This is one of my faves. It's actually like really, really similar to the Haze Cloud Paint. They're very, very similar. And again, like this is such like a beautiful tropical magenta that like, I don't know, you might think that if you're really pale, it might not lend itself well to your skin tone, but it actually, I feel like, gives me a really great kind of like pop that looks at home more than like a red lip on me. Ta-da! That's it, y'all. That's a really easy freaking makeup look right there. Okay, so starting with Pretty Fresh, it is $14 and the concealer is $9. This does have quite a few silicones in it. We've got cyclopentasiloxane, we've got a couple of different kinds of dimethicone. It has coconut water in it and coconut oil as well, I believe, and then it also has phenoxyethanol as the preservative. So this is not, you know, what a lot of people would consider to be a clean foundation. I don't think either of these is actually going for that. They are conscious of those kinds of things, but that is what we would call like a cyclic silicone, which is something that like Victoria Beckham Beauty, like that's what you're paying for, is that she leaves certain things out like that. So this is drugstore in that sense, but I have no problem with those ingredients. So yes, I got Fair 2. They have 21 shades in this, and the concealer comes in 27 shades. Okay, Skin Tint does come in one lighter shade than I have. So they do come in shades from G1 to G12. I used G11 today in both. I could probably go for G12 in the concealer. Now that I don't know, I've just stopped tanning. And by tanning, I mean fake tanning. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm surprised. They actually have really similar ingredients. Water and cyclopentasiloxane are swapped in terms of being the first and second ingredients, but there is dimethicone in both of them. There is PEG dimethicone in both of them. This one does have, yeah, just regular alcohol in it, which a lot of people object to because they think that it's going to be very drying. I've never noticed this being drying to my skin, but you know, obviously that is up to you. It does have mica in it. It does not have coconut. It has castor seed oil and corn oil. It has diamond powder in it, but no coconut. So that is good news for some people. Ooh, 1.45 fluid ounces here. I was about to say, this looks like more than an ounce. So yeah, in the Pretty Fresh, you get 1.45 fluid ounces for $14. And for the Glossier, you get 1 ounce for $26. So this is actually a great deal more expensive pound for pound than the Pretty Fresh. It's just about your preference. And you can always get 10% off of anything Glossier using my links because I am a rep. I never say that. I always forget to say that. Like I mentioned I'm a rep, but I never mention that there's a discount. I guess I should also mention I bought these from Colourpop. The Glossier stuff was sent to me. Glossier is always sent to me. So the ingredients are obviously in a much different order to make something more opaque and just behave like a concealer, but very, very similar ingredients on the Pretty Fresh concealer. It does have hyaluronic acid and things like that in it, but it does have beeswax, so it is not vegan. Has coconut fruit juice, so coconut. Does have dimethicone cross polymers, cyclopentasiloxane, lauryl PEG, trimethyl oxysynthyl dimethicone. You know what I mean? Like that is kind of always the appeal of products that are not in that like clean beauty category because they tend to behave better. They just do. And that's the challenge of clean beauty too, is to find things that behave really well that don't have those things in them. But again, this doesn't seem to bother my skin at all. In fact, it seems to keep moisture in, which I appreciate. And the call-out ingredients for the Glossier Stretch Concealer are beeswax and microcrystalline wax. So yes, this is not vegan either. Avocado and jojoba oil, cocoa butter, mineral pigment. Oddly, the Stretch Concealer doesn't appear to have as many silicones in it. It is more kind of like oils and stabilizers and fatty alcohols and things like that. And I think that that's what makes it behave in such a way that it stays dewy all the time. It never really completely dries down, but the Skin Tint dries down more so than the Stretch Concealer. The stretch concealer is one of those things that over the course of the day, you might go back in and kind of like, you know, smooth it back out with your finger if you catch it kind of like trying to crease or something. It is not what I would call like a long wearing formula. However, if you were to wear it on top of a good gripping primer and you were to wear it on top of a foundation that had a little bit more stabilizer to it or a little bit drier of a texture to it and then powder it, it does totally work. I see Kate the Great Beauty use it all the time. It's just a regular old, works with everything else that she uses kind of concealer, and I've definitely seen it work that way. So yeah, I wouldn't just completely dismiss it as like a one-trick pony. It's not that. It's just when you wear it without powder, it does kind of continue to stay movable. Stretch concealer is $18. Like I said, the Colourpop Pretty Fresh is $9. So again, just a much, I mean, Colourpop is pretty much like the best value that you're ever going to get on makeup, and all of their stuff, with the exception of when they came out with their first foundation and concealer combination, was so disappointed with that. But a lot of people loved it. So, you know, pick your fighter. But they are just a very, very high quality, well thought out. Like, I think that they do really, really high performing products for like such an affordable price. Let's do a zoom in here. I want to show you guys kind of the subtle and sometimes overt differences between the two. So you see that the Colourpop, the foundation itself, has its own dry down. It does look a little bit more opaque on the skin. It does have more coverage, and it's a little bit more mattifying, I would say, even for a skin tint, but most things are more mattifying than the Glossier skin tint. Whereas you just get less coverage on the Glossier side, you're able to see more of my freckles. The concealers, though, are probably the biggest difference to me. I think that the stretch concealer, it is a beautiful camouflaging concealer. You can wear it without anything else, and it will cover the same way as like a color corrector in a totally undetectable way, and it's very, very emollient. I've actually made videos in the past where I have used the stretch concealer to camouflage a full face of freaking acne, okay? Like, I used to have very bad skin. It camouflaged everything in a really nice way, and it felt so kind of like freeing to wear that little makeup. This concealer can do that. It just is hard to compare it to anything else. So, making no secret of the fact that I love both of these, I think that they both serve a really distinct and beautiful purpose, and I like having both of them kind of like as options in my routine. We are going to go ahead and wear this for a full day so that you guys can kind of see over 8 hours of me just living my life, how each one wears, whether those ingredients actually influence wear time, and which one kind of breaks up where, what sacrifices we might be making in terms of performance for certain ingredients, certain coverage levels versus others, and so that you guys, like I said, can see close-ups and make those decisions for yourselves. Because it's almost never my mission, especially with a wear test video, to get done and give you guys some kind of binary. I will tell you whether it kind of gets my stamp of approval in terms of being worth anybody's money, but I want to mainly, predominantly, equip you guys with the information that you need to make the decision for whether it will work for you. So that's what we're going to be doing, and I will see you guys at the end of my day. Hello, welcome back, me. It is the end of my day, and I've got some, I don't know, some final thoughts for you guys, but this is not necessarily about, like I said, good or bad. I love how both of these look right now. I love them. I've had one of those days, I'm dead serious, you guys. I am so burnt out. I am so tired. I'm really, really sorry. I was editing the video, like the previously filmed part, and I was like, God, I'm so low energy. Would someone just slap me in the back of the head? And every once in a while you just have a day like that where you sit down in front of the camera and despite your best efforts, you can't make words happen and you're dead behind the eyes. And you can have all the best intentions in the world and it just doesn't read on camera, so I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me have kind of an off day. But we do have some good results on this, and the main things that I want to share are just kind of the nuanced differences. I'm going to do a nice long close-up so you guys can see the differences here. So starting with coverage, obviously we knew that Glossier was going to have less coverage, but I think that that also resulted in less wear in. It doesn't show as much wear on the skin in the places where there wasn't concealer. The concealer, the combination of the color correction and also the skin tint and also the stretch concealer on the Glossier side, I do feel like resulted in a little bit more wear, a little bit more breaking up. Everything wants to break up right around my mouth. It's just a thing. Underneath my eyes is probably the second worst area for that typically. These I found both of them didn't really wear in very poorly. naturally. They just kind of wore off a little bit, kind of over the day I would reach up and touch my eyes or something, and they just kind of rub off in a very like unnoticeable way, especially the stretch concealer. It's one of those makeups that if you reach up and touch it, no one's going to notice some big missing patch of makeup. You can see on the Colourpop side, yes, it's a little bit more mattified. Yes, it's a little bit more coverage, but it does show a little bit more pores for that reason, whereas I feel like it's a little bit more blurred, looks a little bit more like just my skin, but better on the Glossier side. I will say, for the sake of comparison, the concealer, the Colourpop concealer, really impresses me. It didn't move around very much. It did maintain really nice coverage and brightening, and I just love it. Like, I think it's really, really good. I think that all these products serve a purpose, and it's going to depend on the look that you're kind of trying to achieve and also your budget, I guess. Glossier is not expensive, but it's definitely, everything is more expensive than Colourpop, like period. It's kind of an unfair comparison. But if I had to, I'm up against a wall and had to, for the purposes of this specific way of wearing all of these items, I would probably pick the Glossier skin tint and I would pick the Colourpop concealer. I could totally see somebody else making an argument for the entire opposite for whatever purposes they might need, but I like that the Colourpop concealer dries down, but I also love the really blurring dewiness of the Glossier skin tint more. So yeah, you can pick and choose, do what you want. I would not kick any of these products out of bed by any means, but hopefully that helps you kind of decide between the price, the shades, the coverage, and the ingredients, and the performance, what would be best for you, if anything, you know? I will say that like I will at some point kind of give you guys probably a breakdown. I'm envisioning like one of those like scatter plot graphs where it's like coverage versus dewiness because like you've got Kosas down here that's like medium coverage but like no dewiness, like almost matte when you first put it on, and then you have like in the middle you've got like the CoverGirl, which is kind of like medium coverage, medium dewiness, and then you've got like, you know, Glossier up here that's like low coverage but like high dewiness. That's what I envision. If my spreadsheet and data people will find that useful, I think that's probably what I'll end up doing when I do break down all of these, because there are so many that I've been reviewing lately, so many more coming out. But yeah, I would say that this kind of falls in the like medium to low coverage, slightly matte. I mean, it wears like satin to skin finish, whereas the Glossier is low coverage, very dewy, if that helps. So guys, if this was helpful for you, do give it a thumbs up. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I will do my best to answer any and all. If this is my first video that you're watching, or for any reason you are not yet subscribed, think about subscribing while you're here if you enjoyed this. Ring the little notification bell though, so that you know when I upload, because it's chaos. It's whenever I feel like it. So make sure you do that so you don't miss anything. Thank you guys so much for watching and for hanging out with me today. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.